Today I learned that my dad spent the last 13 years of his life working as a hippopotamus in a Chinese zoo. I barely remember my dad. I was just a kid when he disappeared. Mom always said he'd abandoned us, but today I found out that's a lie. That it was Mom who chased him off because he was overweight and she was disgusted by his body. I also learned that until the day he died, Dad sent us money every month from China, where he worked in a zoo as a hippopotamus. Apparently, after he'd left home, Dad tried to get his obesity under control, first on his own, then with professional medical help, which is how the Chinese made contact with him, buying the clinic's records from a hacker and reaching out with a job offer. I have no idea if they were upfront with him about the job itself. If so, I can't imagine the loneliness and desperation he must have felt to accept. If not, they knew his history and likely deceived him into it, initially giving him a temporary position while feeding and manipulating him into submission. From the photos I've seen, Dad was always a big man. By the time Mom decided she couldn't look at him anymore, he was probably 300 to 400 pounds. I assume the resulting stress drove him to food even more. But even a female hippopotamus, which my dad eventually became, weighs around 3,000 pounds. I can't begin to fathom that transformation. They must have fed him without pity, and he must have eaten it all, knowing he'd reached a point in his life where no other job, no other future was possible. He ate to provide for those he loved. When he achieved the required weight, they tattooed his skin gray and began reshaping his skeletal and muscular systems, breaking, snapping, shortening, and elongating his tendons and bones, his fundamental structure, to support his new weight and force him to live on all fours. A real hippopotamus is primarily muscle, only 2% body fat, but Dad was not a real hippopotamus, so most of his mass was fat. The weakness and the pain he must have felt. Then there was the face, reconstructed beyond recognition. I have seen only one photo of Dad from that period, and I would not be able to tell that he was human. From what I was able to piece together, his day-to-day existence at the zoo was generally monotonous. The other hippopotamuses accepted him, and he lived in a kind of familial relationship with them. I like to think he had hippopotamus companions, that he was not entirely alone, but it's impossible to know for sure. At worst, they merely tolerated him. My dad ultimately died in 2017, whipped to death by a zookeeper because he no longer had the strength to get up. His body was dismembered and fed to the other hippopotamuses, both to destroy evidence and because it saved a minimal amount of money on animal feed. In the 13 years my dad worked as a hippopotamus, no zoo visitor ever recognized him as human. He must have been proud of that. I am too.